Once upon a time, there was a collector. For the sake of the story, let us call him James. When I say that James is a collector, I mean that in the most literal sense. Ever since he was a child, he enjoyed collecting things. Sticks, rocks, interestingly shaped leaves. He enjoyed organizing them. He liked creating stories for what should be in the collection and what should not. He liked having things. As James grew older, those old collections were discarded in favor of new collections. Action figures based on cartoons, baseball cards, Garfield books, things that did not just appeal to his sense of having, but his sense of story. James found that he liked stories. His Garfield collection expanded to other comic strips like Foxtrot or Calvin and Hobbes. As expansive as those collections could be, they were also finite. James finished those collections and found himself wanting. James enjoyed not just the act of having, you see, but the act of acquiring. The act of examining an object, judging its worth and value, and accepting it into one's being. Having the thing was good. Getting the thing was better. But the collections of comic strips took time to release. Regular prose books took time as well. James wanted that hit sooner and regularly. James found it in comic books. Here were stories that did not end, for even if one comic finished its story or characters might appear somewhere else. Every comic book is just one stitch in an enormous tapestry. Between the seemingly endless sea of back issues and the regular monthly release of hundreds of comics, James found himself a steady source of acquisition. Now we find James as a grown man. His collection has grown steadily over the course of his life. He has finished series both large and small, expensive and cheap. There are some comics that others would love to get their hands on, and many that others would be glad to be rid of. But to James, every comic was special. Every comic was important. Every comic was another coin in his Scrooge McDuck-like money bin. James returned to his apartment from a successful round of hunting at a local dollar sale. He managed to get by only spending about $60, no small feat for him. James then went through his normal procedure, sorting them out by company, then by series. He would put them in issue order and start the lengthy process of cataloging what he had versus what he needed to acquire. Then would come the internet research, figuring out series length, any crossovers or tie-in issues or sequel series. Normally, that's what he would have done. Today, something strange happened. There was a comic in his stack that he did not remember grabbing. The name of it was unfamiliar. The creative team was unknown. The cover did not spark any memories at all. James flipped it over in his hands, and then he sat down on the corner of his bed and flipped the cover open. If you are wondering why I am not telling you the title of this comic, it is because I do not know it. I do not know it because James does not know it. No matter how much he stares at it, he cannot seem to keep its title in his mind. Is the artwork realistic or cartoony? Bright and animated or grim dark? It is all things. Perhaps, in truth, it is none of those things. It is an art style unlike anything that you or James has ever seen before. Somehow it seems to cut through James's mind. It does not speak to his intellect. Rather, it speaks to his emotions. He is intrigued at first as he begins to read and confused, but quickly drawn in. He experiences an adrenaline rush so powerful it is like he rode a roller coaster. But he comes down before the end, as the tension rises to a cliffhanger ending that leaves him breathless. He wants more. He needs more. And this is not an unknown feeling to James. But it is more powerful than it normally is. James moves to his computer and, without thinking, types into the search engine. How many issues is this comic? Who published it? When? He needs to get the rest of it as soon as possible, but first, he's going to need to find it. If he has never heard of it before, the odds of finding it are not good, because that means that he has never seen it at any of his local shops. That means internet shopping, that means paying for shipping, and that means this is going to get expensive. But this would not be the first time that a dollar sale find has kicked off a $100 run to completion. Once James started a series, normally he would see it finished, if he can find it. There is a message from Claire, James's girlfriend. It reads,
"I'm out of work. Are you still up? Want food?" Am I still up? Yeah, Oh, wow, it's fucking 10? What happened?
James looks at the comic, and he can feel all of his attention beginning to focus on it once again.
How did the comic buying go, my mighty hunter?
Claire asks. James chuckles and replies.
Same kind of stuff, but found something really cool. A book I've never heard of before. Very excited. Down to eat, super hungry.
And so James and his Claire enjoyed a fine meal together. Pleasant conversation and young love put the strange, fascinating comic out of James's mind. For a time. When James returned home from work the next day, his attention shifted back to his new acquisitions. He finished sorting and organizing them, leaving the best for last. That strange comic.
Okay, let's see what your deal is. My usual avenues of investigation are shockingly dry on this hunt. I find nothing on my comic shop. There's no Wikipedia entry, no Google, no listings on eBay, the Facebook market, whatnot, Craigslist. I'm desperate here. I've collected comics with low print runs before. I've come up dry while digi-hunting. Some stuff, has been too expensive for me, but I still find it, right? It's listed, but sold out or out of print or whatever. But with this, nothing. So, I sent out some emails. I DM'd a few people that I've met over the years, and guess what? You found it.
Claire said.
One. I found one more issue.
Claire smiled.
That's great. That is excellent. It cost me more than I would have liked, and it's going to take a minute to get here, but it's a start. So you have 2 out of how many?
Claire asked.
I do not know. Right now, I'm not even sure if there is more. For all I know, whoever published this thing did the 2 issues, and then maybe the company went under, or the team quit. Unless I hear something from someone else, I kind of think this is pretty much done.
Those emails that James had sent? Those were to people that he had met over the years, comic store owners and fellow collectors. That is all true. But they were also people that James had never contacted before. He also did not mention that purchasing that second issue took everything that he had. The credit card is maxed out. The weekly paycheck is devoted to food, bills, and the weekly release of comics. For James's sake, this business best be done quickly. The arrival of the second issue was a welcome day for James. It had been nearly 2 weeks since his initial purchase of it, and he had read the first comic every day since that day. His 4-inch tall stack from the dollar sale was all but forgotten. This comic demanded his focus, his attention, and he spent most of his waking hours after work rereading it. He could recite it backwards and forwards, if he could remember what it was about, other than fulfilling his being completely. Or rather, almost completely. The second issue arrived. James read it eagerly. His focus on it was so strong that he did not stop reading it until his phone rang.
Yeah, hello?
Claire's voice trembled when she asked.
Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. Just, doing some reading. You ignored me all day just to do some reading? What the hell?
Claire asked angrily.
What are you talking about?
Claire cut him off.
I texted you once I got off of work last night and no response. No big deal. I figure maybe you'd already gone to bed. But I've been texting you all morning. I tried calling you on your lunch break. Nothing. I know you can't respond fast when you're at work, but at least send me a text saying so. And then you've been home since then just reading? I'm sorry, really. I don't really know what's been going on. Like, you tried calling at work? I didn't.
James looked at his phone screen. Indeed, a full day had passed since he opened his new arrival and started reading. What had happened? How did this happen? While James certainly focused on what he was reading when he was reading, it was never to the exclusion of reality. But the proof was right there. A missed call and a voicemail, 5 unread texts from his girlfriend, and 2 from work. Fear flooded James's mind.
I honestly don't know what happened, Claire. I am so sorry. Somehow my phone must have got put on silent and I didn't notice.
As James made his excuses, his conscious mind turned to the task of soothing his girlfriend's hurt feelings. But his unconscious mind turned his eyes towards the second issue, and the strange effect that it had on him. How could someone lose a day while reading a comic book? That had never happened before. But a part of him could understand. The artwork was so engaging, the page layouts creative and dynamic. The characters felt so real, so flawed but hopeful. Most of the time, a comic just stays as good as the first issue that you read. It doesn't get exponentially better. And to be so good as to somehow keep his attention for an entire day? That was unheard of.
I know it isn't going to set things right, but how about dinner is on me tonight? I did not realize how hungry I am, and you'll have my full attention the whole time. Nothing can distract me. Claire responded quickly. I got worried, You normally respond pretty quickly, and I was really scared that something had happened.
Once James opened the email, his eyes got wide. Someone had found another issue, but it was not cheap. The credit card was tapped out. His cash was already spent. He had some amount of savings, but that was meant for emergencies or birthdays or gifts. If he spent that now, that would put him awfully close to danger if anything went wrong in his life. But what are the odds that something would go wrong? James composed a simple reply. Send me your PayPal. The previous 2 issues were carefully put away, as all comics were. James made certain not to flip through them at all this time. While he could not understand how reading 1 issue somehow ate a whole day, he was not willing to test that effect until his next day off. In the meantime, payday wasn't for another week, new comic day was approaching, and James needed money quickly. There was no time to get an additional job. He had nothing to sell, save for his collections, and that act was so abominable as to be a sin in James's mind. He began to sell his plasma. At almost $100 a week doing so for James, it was an easy decision. All it took was an afternoon, a tolerance for needles, and making sure to stay fed and watered. He was told to relax for 24 hours after his sale, but his job didn't quite allow for that. James was on his feet the next day, running around, and while he felt fine for the most part, he did feel tired. After almost 2 weeks of waiting, working, and selling plasma, the 3rd comic arrived. Despite the heavy sense of fatigue that seemed to pull James down, he was thrilled at the new arrival. He hadn't touched the previous 2 issues since the time loss happened, just in case. But with the 3rd issue arriving, he couldn't wait any longer. He waited for his next day off, warned his girlfriend that he was going to be hard to reach for a day, and set out the comics on his floor. He chose a comfortable pillow, laid down on his stomach, and started to read. Eventually, Claire's scared voice manages to break into James's mind.
Wake up! James! Yeah, I'm awake. Oh, what's going on? What's going on?
Claire asked.
Look at yourself!
James had pushed himself up from his position on the floor, but the fog of sleep still clung to his mind. He looked down. Laid out before him were the 3 comic books. All of them had been left out of their bags and boards, but they were also stacked in such a way as to indicate that he had finished reading them at some point. A small dark puddle stains the carpet where James had drooled on it.
Yeah, I fell asleep. Okay, that's not a big deal. It's been a week, James,
Claire said.
Are you serious? Yeah, I'm serious. Here, look at my phone.
Claire handed James her phone.
Are you telling me that you've been lying on the floor for a week?
Claire asked.
That can't be possible.
James is quiet.
What happened, James? I told you what happened. I don't know why it happened. Maybe these comics are like laced with something? And reading just the one, maybe it gave me a smaller dosage, so I just lost the day that one time, but because I read all 3, it was like a superdose?
Claire's eyes go wide.
Is that a thing that happens? Who drugs comic books? I mean, acid tabs are just paper laced with acid, right? It's a super illegal idea, but the idea of creating a mind-bending story by lacing the paper that it's printed on is it's kind of genius.
Claire put a hand on James's shoulder.
It could have killed you. Yeah, right? You need to see a doctor. I'm fine.
But Claire didn't quite believe it.
You just spent a week in a coma on your bedroom floor. You have not eaten or drank anything in that meantime. How are you not dead? I feel fine. Like, normal? I don't feel tired or hungry or like I spent a week unconscious on the floor at all. Like, I feel good. You should still see a doctor,
Claire responded.
I don't know what happened, Claire, but I have to be fine. I've been selling my plasma, and you need to get checked out before you can start doing that.
Claire interrupted him.
You've been selling plasma?
But James continued.
Yeah, and it means that I know that I don't have any drugs in my system or anything. They would have found it. These comics are expensive on a whole nother level than I'm used to. I needed the extra money.
Claire broke the silence first.
So now what? Clean up the carpet, I guess? I really need to call work. I should probably eat and drink something, but I don't feel bad, Claire. I feel fine.
Claire looked at the comic books.
And what about those?
She asked. Neither one spoke, as James turned to look at the comics as well.
Well, I'm going to put them away, for sure. But the next time that I read them, maybe you can be here. Or you can record me so I can see what happens. I have never heard of anything like this happening before, so it's got to be some kind of freak accident or something. I don't like the idea of you touching them again,
Claire said in a small voice.
Look, here. See? No coma. I'm fine. If there is something there, maybe it takes prolonged exposure or something.
Claire still didn't like the idea of him keeping them.
Considering what I spent on them, I am not throwing them away. Are there more?
Claire asked.
Is this going to happen again? I'm not sure there are more. I don't know if it's going to happen again. I hope it's not. A week, James. I thought you might be dead. I'm sorry. I am so sorry.
James and Claire spent quite some time together afterwards, doing their best to clean the carpet. James asked Claire what he had missed in her life in the past week, but his attention was not fully on their conversation. What was the deal with these comics? Who published these things? And were they really laced with something? That idea is novel and unique, and even in the back of James's mind as it rolls around, he has to admit that he is excited. Exhaustion eventually caused Claire to leave, though. She had considered staying the night just to keep an eye on James, but he assured her that he was fine. If he had already missed a week of work, then she certainly couldn't afford to miss a shift babysitting him. She needed to get home and get some rest. With Claire gone, James was able to turn his attention fully back to the comics. The question before him then became, should he stop collecting them? Well, he certainly should. He certainly should. But keeping 3 issues of an unfinished series in his boxes just feels wrong. Like a stone in his shoe, the thought of it sitting there, unfinished, bothers him even now. Every time he bought a comic, it would remind him of not finishing this one series. He could get rid of the comics, put them on eBay, sell them to a local shop. James would not make his money back, but at least he would not have to worry about evil comic books knocking him out, or whatever it was that they did. He should stop, James decided. He should sell the issues. His life has been falling apart since he found the first one, and he has been ignoring all of those other comics that he bought. Yes, he should stop. After a time spent charging, James turned his phone back on. Unsurprisingly, there was a mass of missed calls and texts from Claire, eliciting a new pang of guilt and fear. Several were from his job, asking where he was and what was going on. But there was also a new email. One of his contacts had found another issue. James put the phone down and walked away.
How would I even get that much money? It was bad enough using my card and my savings, but what's left? What else could I do? I'm due at the plasma clinic, but that's only going to be another 100. I don't think there's anything else we can do. Huh? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm still not really back up to speed. What did you say? I don't think that there's much else that we can do, James. You no-call no-showed for a week. You no-call no-showed the couple weeks before that. If I just let this slide, what kind of message does that send to the rest of the team? I didn't choose not to come in,
James argued.
I passed out on my floor. I'm sorry that I couldn't call while I was unconscious, but it's not like there was anything I could do about it.
James's boss stared at him.
Did you go to the doctor? Do you have some kind of reasonable explanation for why you weren't in? I didn't go to the doctor,
James replied.
Look, I'm fine now. I don't need to see a doctor to tell me that I passed out. I get that it happened. You might not need an answer, James, but we do, his boss said. I can't let an unexcused absence of this length go, James. Drew, I have worked here for 6 years. I have never disappeared on you, not once. If I could help calling out, then I did, and I've never done this kind of thing before. It was just a one-time thing, a fluke. Then what happened a couple weeks ago, James? The same thing happened. You no-call, no-show, and then it was one day, and now it's a week. What happens when it's a month? Like, at some point, this is just job abandonment. I can't make an exception, James. I'm sorry. You will still get paid for the week before, but it'll be on the next paycheck. That'll give you at least some time to find another job. That is not really what I'm worried about, but all right. Fuck! Okay, now what? I've got 200-ish bucks in the bank. Rent is due in a week. I don't have that. I missed New Comic Day, so that's probably about 50 bucks spent already, which doesn't help things. And the seller wants 500 for the comic? Well, I guess I just got a lot more free time to read those weird comics.
James then pulled out his phone. He opened his email and typed a simple reply to the seller. "Give me some time, but I'm interested." That night, James and Claire got a simple dinner at McDonald's.
"So obviously you need a job,"
Claire says.
"Got any ideas?" "Yeah, I've got some thoughts. I put out some online applications earlier today, so maybe one of them will pay off. I've still got the plasma thing going on in the meantime, so I am making some money, but not nearly enough. I'm still grossed out that you're selling your blood, but I guess it's coming in handy now,"
Claire admits.
"Yeah, it's better than nothing. But I have another idea that could save me, that could save us, actually, some money. What if I moved in with you?" I don't know, James. I know this isn't the most romantic place or way to ask this. We've been going out for almost a year now, though, and I don't know how easy it's going to be to get a job super quick. So maybe, I move in and we can split the rent. Right? Which will make things easier for you, too. And then, if things aren't great, once I'm back on my feet, I can just move back out. What do you think?
Claire hesitated.
I'm worried. It's bad enough that you lost your job, but then you add in the weird blacking out while reading comics thing and whatever is going on out there, and I was the one who asked you to move in first. Do you remember that? I asked you, and you said no, you wanted your own space for now. This feels more like moving in because it is convenient, not because you want to. I wouldn't ask if I didn't want to. We've stayed together since then, right? We have had more time to get to know each other, Claire. We've stayed together since then, Claire, and we've had more time to get to know one another. I still am, really scared that you're going to find something about me that you don't like. Maybe it'll be the comics, or it'll be something else, and you'll call the whole relationship off. I know that my collecting can seem, over the top to some people, and I don't want that to be something that scares you off. I never have, and so I've wanted to keep my distance. What's going to scare me off is you buying comic books that are going to kill you. Look, those books are off the table for now. I cannot afford them, and they have clearly messed up my life. I'm trying to set things right here, and I think that us coming together will be able to do that.
James wipes fry grease off of one hand and rests it on Claire's.
It would mean no more driving across town every day just to see each other. Think of how much closer we'll be. I want this, Claire. I really do. But if you aren't ready yet, that's fine. I'll figure something else out. I love you, and I don't want to pressure you. What? Do you know what you just said?
Claire asked.
That I don't want to pressure you into something you don't want? I get it, but... Okay, let's do this, Claire said. Let's try this out. But one thing, those freaky comics, they don't come with you. I can do that,
James replied. Rather than move the offending comics into Claire's apartment, James kept them in his car. The rest moved into Claire's apartment over the course of the next week. Each time that James brought in another box, his eyes passed over Claire's property. Enter the apartment, there was the couch, there was the TV. At first, this was simply how looking at things work. James would stay at Claire's, go back to his place to pick up another thing and apply for some jobs online, then return. As the week ran on, though, James found price tags attached to items in his head. Claire's TV, pawned for $100. Nintendo Switch, pawned for $100. Claire's computer setup. James did not even know what that could be worth. He didn't even notice that this was happening. But it was. And it came in handy when James got a new email. "I have another buyer who is interested," the email said, regarding the next comic in the series. What can you offer? James's blood ran cold. Moving and applying for jobs had kept James's mind busy, and his need for the new issue had been grossly weakened. But with this new threat appearing from the shadows, he needed to act, now. His last paycheck and the blood money had gotten him through rent at Claire's place, but left his accounts empty. While Claire was at work, James retrieved the 3 issues that he had from his car and laid them out before him. Staring at them, James knew that they were just paper and ink. Just stories. They had existed before him, and they would exist after him. These comics had existed alongside him for years, it seemed, out in the world, and he had never known it at all. His life had been perfectly fine without them. But they also represented an experience that James had not had yet. This was not just a comic book series sitting in front of him. This was the unknown. This was novelty. This was the mystery incarnate. Where did these come from? How did they affect him so strongly? Why did no one else seem to know anything about them? And to leave a collection unfinished, sitting in his short boxes, would haunt him forever. It would be like having a hair in the mouth, one that could never be removed. James's eyes moved from the comics to the entertainment console. James replied to the email.
If I get you cash, can I pick it up today? Is that possible? I don't know if you're local.
After sending the email, James did not stay sitting on the couch for long. He could not. He was nervous. He was scared about how much money it would cost, about whether he could get that much money, whether he could get the comic today or not. If he got the comic today and read it when he came down, he could donate plasma again, use that money to buy back Claire's stuff. It was only going to be gone for a week or 2, he argued, not even enough time for it to be missed. As these thoughts ran through his mind, James began unplugging electronic devices and coiling cables, just in case. James scoops up his phone. The email confirmed that the seller is local. They will take cash, and they list an amount. James looks over the electronics, and then he moves into Claire's bedroom, hoping to find jewelry. Reading the 4 comics fulfilled James in a way that he did not know was possible. Even with all of the terrible fear that came after, for the length of time that it took him to read them, he was happy, content. Nothing else in the world mattered. It was as if he had left all of the pain of his body behind and existed only to experience. He was not reading, he was being. It was glorious, it was sublime, it was perfect. Until the violent shaking by Claire dragged him from where he was back into his mundane body of meat and bone.
What the fuck did you do with my stuff?
What's up?
My TV, my Switch. Where is my fucking computer, James?
Cold, waking clarity washes over James's peace like water on a fire.
Are you just gonna fucking lay there? I had to know what happens next.
Claire grabs the comics.
What happens next? What happens next is you fucking leave, James. Don't throw them! Fucking Christ, Claire, do you have any idea how much those cost? Oh, I know. Do you?
And she slams the door shut. There is a pause as James picks up the comics and straightens them out.
Claire, I know I fucked up. I know that. I can feel that. I just have to know how it ends. I can't leave these unfinished. I need just a little more time. Just leave, James. Where am I supposed to go, Claire? I don't care. Just go.
James went to the only place left to him, his car. For some reason, staying in the parking lot outside of Claire's place felt wrong, and so he left. Shame and frustration raced through James' mind as he drove aimlessly around town. He knew that what he did was wrong. He just was not able to stop himself from doing it. He needed to finish the series. He needed to know how it ended. Yes, selling her stuff was bad, but he could fix that. It would take time, but he would. He just needed to finish this series first. Once that was done, then he would be free. Everything could go back to normal. She had let him into her home. She had trusted him. She knew that James was a good person most of the time, but he can understand why she's mad. She's been patient and caring, and he was really so careless as to hurt her like that. He should have seen this coming. He should probably have grabbed a box of comics on the way out. He only had the 4 to read now, and it takes a moment for James to check his phone. His tongue worms around his mouth as he is searching for a hair stuck in his gums. When he reaches a red light, James pulls his phone out and checks the email. The seller has managed to find another issue. The final issue. Adrenaline suddenly courses through every ounce of James's body. His eyes go wide, his pulse quickens, he starts breathing hard. But then he can hear the pain in Claire's voice again shouting at him. He made that happen. He broke her heart. He did not break her heart. These comics did. These damn comics. He cannot buy them. He cannot. He has no money left. No way to get enough to pay for the comic in any time frame that's going to salvage what's left of his life. As the light turns green, James quickly responds that he can't afford it. He deposits the phone in the cup holder. Cautiously, James picks it up. The seller offers a unique way of paying for the comic. This is the last one, they say, so I'll cut you a deal. James reads the offer. His eyes go wide. He throws the phone to the other side of the car.
Fuck you!
James spends the night and the next day mostly in his car. He uses fast food places for bathroom breaks and small amounts of food. After all, he cannot afford much more than the dollar menu right now. Eventually, he is going to need to get gas, and that is going to be a problem, but right now it is not. Throughout the day, he considers texting Claire, asking if she's okay, explaining his situation, but he cannot bring himself to do so. She is the one that he hurt. She is the one who wanted him gone. He does his best to respect that. As James sits in his car, the 4 comics that he does have sit quietly in the passenger seat. He wants to read them. More than once he has picked up one of the comics and almost started to leaf through it. But every time he has managed to stop. These do not just cost him time, they have cost him his life. He drops the comic back into the seat and folds his arms. The next day, after an uncomfortable night in the car, his phone dings with a text message from Claire.
I fixed your mistake. If you're cool with it, I'm willing to talk about whatever your deal is.
James rushed over to her place. After he knocks, Claire barely opens the door for him. She leaves the chain lock on, staring at him with cautious eyes.
You okay? Like, in your head, okay? Claire, I know that I messed up. I'm pretty confident that I've got some kind of addiction. Clearly, this isn't just collecting anymore. And I could see what selling your stuff, stealing my stuff. Yeah, I guess it was stealing your stuff. I knew that stealing your stuff was wrong and that it would hurt you, but I couldn't stop it. Like, I knew logically that it was wrong, and I could feel that it was wrong, and I just couldn't help myself. And I'm not saying that makes it okay. It's not an excuse for me hurting you. It was like a program was running in my brain other than me. I couldn't stop it. I want it to stop, though. I want to get you your stuff back and get my life back, and I want to get you back. You're okay with paying to replace my stuff?
Claire asks.
Absolutely.
Claire unlocks the door.
That's good. Because you did.
Stepping into Claire's apartment, James scans the living area. As with before, a secret tally is put together in his mind. TV, switch, computer, their monetary value. But as he is doing this, what he is not seeing are his comic short boxes.
I know that your comics mean a lot to you. I have always thought your passion for it was cute and endearing. Like, I could see you loving something so much that maybe you could love me that much. And I'll be honest, I was starting to have doubts before all this weird stuff happened. But then you asked to move in, and you said that you loved me, and I want that to be true. I want that to be true so bad. But it's also clear to me that whatever your fixation with comics is, it's reached the point where it's unhealthy, James. For a moment there, I thought maybe you moved in just so that you could steal my stuff, but then why would you just sit here and read another comic, right? That would be stupid. When you said that you think you have an addiction, I think you're right. So I hope that by getting rid of your comics, that might help you. So I sold them to a shop, and I bought my stuff back.
James can feel his stomach twist.
And there was enough money left over after transporting all of it and getting my shit back that I thought maybe you and I could try again. We could go out tonight, get something nice to eat, and talk about whatever is going on with you and where we go from here.
James's mouth has turned dry as a desert. Tears strain against his eyes. He cannot breathe except through his nose. His eyes move over the room, desperately searching for any sign of his collection. A missed issue, a short box with something on top of it maybe missed in all the chaos. But the apartment is empty of James's collection.
Yeah, that sounds great,
James replies. Claire hugs him from behind, cementing this new emotional connection between them with a physical one. James can feel the hug, but he's not enjoying it at all. There is no comfort for him. He unlocks his phone. He opens his email and replies to the seller with one word. Deal. Later that night, James is sitting in his car once more. He's been waiting for hours. He hopes that the seller arrives soon. He wants to read these strange, wondrous comics in one sitting, get the full experience, know the full weight of the story. Another car parks nearby and flashes their lights. That car's driver gets out. Eager, James exits his car but leaves his door open, not straying too far. The seller approaches, a thin rectangle in one hand. He shows James the comic, still in a bag and board. It takes every ounce of James's strength not to grab it. He can almost feel the pages on his fingertips.
You have the payment?
The seller asks.
Right here.
James presses a button on his key fob, and the trunk of his car pops open. They both stand next to the trunk, and tied up inside of it, with a big welt on the side of her head, is Claire. The seller hands James the final issue. The seller picks up Claire, and he walks away. Giddy, James closes the trunk without ever taking his eyes off of the cover of the comic. He gets back into the car, but he doesn't bother to start it yet. He is vibrating with excitement. This is it. This is the final issue. Yes. Oh, yes. He will find a 24-hour fast food place and finally have a chance to read the whole thing. Finally, he will have the whole story. He doesn't ask how the seller knew about Claire. He doesn't ask how the seller knew what Claire's name was or why they want her. All he knows is that once he is done with his reading, he has a collection to rebuild. No matter what it costs.
Everyone, there are a million podcasts vying for your time and attention, and I'd like to thank you for listening to mine. If you would like to get in touch with me to share a concern, request a series, compliment me, berate me, whatever you like, send me an email at cbbreakdown@gmail.com. Otherwise, thanks for listening.